Can you hear me?
Yes.
I've got a little bit of sniffles because I've been in Hamilton for the past 2 months and it's like 0 degrees last night. But so anyway, something that's very relevant to every living being, not just human beings, but everything that moves, breathes, interacts, and that's consciousness. It's a very fascinating subject, and yet we don't really get told much about what it is, how we can understand it, how we can elevate it, how we can quantify it. The fact is, in modern science, they don't really understand what it is. 1/3 of scientists will say, oh, I don't know what consciousness is, and we'll never know what it's going to be like. Another third of the scientists say that, yes, consciousness, we don't know what it is at the moment, but in the future, we'll find out. And the last third of scientists, they'll say, we believe consciousness is a material phenomena, but we can't prove it. So this is about as best that you get in the academic world in terms of explanation of what consciousness is. Yet consciousness is there, we experience it every day as we breathe and we interact with everything around us in this world. The fact that you can hear and interact with people and sounds and nature means that you're conscious, right? So how can we grapple with this most real essence of our being? The yoga text explains that we are multi-dimensional beings. We have a physical reality, we have a psychological mental reality, we have the intellectual reality, and then we have the non-material conscious reality. And I think it's safe to say in modern civilization there's a lot of focus or prioritization in the physical. Physical means that you have this body, you have these senses, and they demand sense objects. Your mind is also a sense. The psychological factor, it likes to latch onto things. And sometimes you like to be a little bit intelligent. You know, it's not very often encouraged to be intellectual. Actually, if you study philosophy in the university, it's the poorest department. I have a background in philosophy and contextual studies, and at best, if you get a degree in philosophy, you might become, I don't know, work in McDonald's, maybe, Burger King. There's just no value for wisdom. You know. Why? Because it doesn't make any money. And essentially, modern civilization is going at a pace by which it's all about how to be a viable economic unit. And what are you thinking about so much about consciousness anyway? What does it matter? You've got mind, you've got senses that demand certain things. Why not just satisfy those urges? But the thing is, everything is filtered through our consciousness, if you haven't noticed. We all want to experience quality lifestyle, quality experiences, but that's dependent on the quality of our consciousness. You can put someone in the most extraordinary environment, situation, lots of money, lots of greenery, lots of, nice things, but if the consciousness is no good, still they can't actually appreciate the environment around them. And we see that in modern society, especially the affluent countries of the world, where the biggest problems are things like heart disease and mental aberrations. I don't want to depress you all. And loneliness. Actually, I just read recently that there's over 700,000 people in New Zealand that experience loneliness. And most of those people are between the ages of 15 and 24 years old. Now, why is that? Considering that we're very advanced in information technology, communication technology, economics, people are feeling a little bit lonely and even suicidal. New Zealand's got one of the biggest suicide rates on the planet. Now, a lot of you here are travelers, I think. Any travelers around here? And you look familiar. And you probably wouldn't expect it. I meet a lot of people from Germany and France and Europe. They say, New Zealand's got the highest suicide rate, youth suicide rate. How can that be? It's such a beautiful country. It doesn't make any sense. There were over 660 suicides in New Zealand last year. That's double places like States and the UK. So it doesn't make any sense. You're in a very beautiful, affluent environment. But why is it that people are feeling lonely, depressed, to the extent that they will take their own lives? So for an intelligent person, we want to scratch our heads. What is going on with our priorities in the civilization? Actually, there was one funny story about the Dalai Lama. Everyone's heard of Dalai Lama? One day, the Dalai Lama, he was in Switzerland. He was staying in a very beautiful high-rise motel overlooking the Swiss Alps, and there was the ocean and the river and the beautiful scenery. And Dalai Lama was with his student. And Dalai Lama and his student went to the window of this motel, and they were observing the scenery. And then the student told the Dalai Lama, Dalai Lama, look how beautiful. Look how beautiful the scenery is. The oceans, the forest, the river. Does it make you feel so wonderful? And then the Dalai Lama said, oh, it depends. If I was suicidal, I would like to jump off. So again, it completely depends. This is a perfect place for me to jump off. It completely depends on the quality of your consciousness. Everything is filtered through your consciousness. You're not told anything about it. So there's this one thing that we all have in common in principle, a fundamental principle of the universe for every living being, is that you and I, irrespective of my occupation, whether I'm a monk, a student, family man, lawyer, a doctor, engineer, we're all conscious. So how do we elevate our consciousness to the extent where we can be absorbed in the greatest form of satisfaction and fulfillment? This is how an intelligent person thinks. Yes. So, the yoga knowledge of ancient India is trying to invite you all to understand these deepest secrets of existence. And part of consciousness is meditation, because we want to be absorbed in something. Notice how your life, you want to be absorbed in something wonderful and sublime with the hopes of fulfillment, satisfaction, happiness, inner peace, better well-being. And if you don't have that connectivity, you don't have that absorption, then you can be a little bit morose, as we were discussing. So like Bhadra was saying, yoga means to connect. It's an ancient tradition. And it's about absorbing our consciousness in the most profound way. Irrespective of our environmental situation. If we have quality consciousness, then we'll have quality experience. We'll be able to deal with the so-called ups and downs that this world is throwing at us in the best possible way, depending on how we perceive things. Yes? So the yoga text of ancient India explains that there are 5 stages of consciousness development. And the first stage of consciousness is called anamoya. Anamoya means that your absorption, your meditation is simply on eating. That's it. You want to eat. You're hungry. You want to eat. You're not hungry. You don't want to eat. But that's your whole life's existence. Hungry. Do you know anyone like that? Live anyone with like that? Maybe you had a friend that just wants to eat. Eat to live, live to eat. It's not a very extravagant life. According to the yoga text, this is the lowest. Just want to eat. And a lot of people fully meditate on what they're going to eat. Oh, I'm going to have this burger. I'm going to have this pizza. What do people like to eat? Chicken. Excuse me, I'm vegetarian. I don't know. What do people like to eat? Sushi. And you meditate on it. It's such a strong, sensual meditation. Your mind is absorbed. Yeah, sushi. Your saliva's coming out, and you're thinking how to get the sushi, This is a full, hardcore meditation for people who are feeling down with themselves. They just binge eat. You know that New Zealand is one of the top 5 obese countries in the world? If not top 5, at least definitely top 10. Correct me if I'm wrong, but definitely top 10. Top 3, okay. Stand corrected. So there you go. People love to eat. So you want to go beyond this. The yoga text explains that the next level of consciousness is called pranamoya. Prana means the air, the life force, the life airs in your body. So you go a little bit beyond eating and you recognize, oh, I'm alive. Wow. I actually exist. I'm alive. So when you find out that you're alive, what do you normally do? Anyone? Take a stab question. Answer. Breathe. That's a good start. You're breathing. What? Why do you breathe? To stay alive. If you know you're alive, you want to stay alive. That's why there's so much defense and money invested in defense forces in this day and age. So the main meditation for someone in pranamoya is how to defend, how to stay alive. We do this through armaments and weapons of mass destruction, like we were hearing last week, 60,000 nuclear weapons in the world for the purpose of peace, according to the American leaders. Trillions of dollars. But anyway, so the point is they want to stay alive, hopefully not blow up everything else at the same time, but anyway, the point is stay alive, and we might want to stay alive by propagating our family lineage, our families and nations. That's also stay alive. So you'll notice that generally in our global society, it doesn't, if you observe, there's not much really happening except this anamoya and pranamoya consciousness. Just eating, defending, and propagating. But we have to go higher. And the next stage is manamoya. Manamoya means that you recognize that you have human intelligence and you can understand these things. You can philosophize. You can try and figure out, why am I suffering? What is this world? Is there anything else beyond this world? Who am I anyway? What am I supposed to be doing with my life besides being, a walking and eating, defending creature? Is there something more to existence and more purpose to existence than just these things? Human potential begins in manamoya. The schools of philosophy, the institutions of like that try to inspire people to have meaning, value, purpose, and inquire about existence in general. This is manamoya. How many people are actually, encouraged to think like that? I certainly wasn't encouraged to think like that when I was growing up. You've got to think deeply about the purpose of life. Anyone encouraged like that? If you were, then you were very special. You had a very special teacher. In any case, this is the next level of consciousness, manamoya. I can try to figure out, what is existence? Is there a supreme? Am I the supreme? Am I part of the supreme? And then the next stage is called vijnanamoya. Now, vijnanamoya means the stage of self-realization. Now that I have figured out that I'm supposed to do something meaningful and purposeful with my existence, and I'm no longer... Let's just hypothetically imagine, I'm sick of being a viable economic unit, just work, buy, consume, die, consumer belief. That's the biggest religion in the world, consumerism. You're led to go into, you're led to believe to go into these certain places, and you buy, and that's it. And you're supposed to be satisfied, at the same time consuming all the world's resources. This is a big belief. And let's just hypothetically imagine that, you figured that out. I don't want to be a viable economic unit, just work, buy, consume, and die, and I need a better purpose to my existence. So then, vijnanamoya, I need to embark in the quest of self-realization, self-actualization. What is my real goal in life? Than just these things. And now, when you come to this stage of consciousness, you can become really bewildered. Haven't you noticed? I remember when I first came to a place like this in Wellington, about 17, 18 years ago, almost 2 decades, like Barbara said, I was just bewildered. What the hell's going on? Funny chants, funny smells, funny looking people. Back then they had everyone wore the robes and things like that. I was like, whoa. It was really uncomfortable. But there was something really, really special about the place. The people had something really special to talk about. The music was very special. The food was, the food was really special, especially for like a dying, hungry, university student. Back then it was only $3 and you can eat all you want. For a student in Wellington, living in Ara Valley, that was the best deal in Wellington. No one could beat it, So I was like, But I was a little bit bewildered. What the hell's going on? What's this Hare 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 Krishna Krishna chanting, and what's all this meditation and yoga? But then you can become bewildered like that. Where do I go? I know I should be doing something more with my life, but there's all these smorgasbord of spiritual delights. How do you even begin to make sense of it all? Isn't it? There's my grandmother's always saying, Baptist or hell, and my mom's saying one thing, and and then you go into the internet and just there's hatha yoga, hot yoga, beer yoga, sex yoga, nude yoga, how many kinds of meditation, mindfulness meditation, nature meditation, candle meditation, self-meditation, sense meditation, just where do you even begin, man? So naturally people are like, wow, I think I'll just be a consumer. At least I've got something physical I can grapple with. So naturally we're a little bit bewildered and a little bit hesitant, and I was definitely like that. I'm just my own realization when I first came along to this thing. I never used to be a monk, nor did I have any aspiration to be a monk in my whole life. Never, ever. But you know how life takes you to one stage to another. In any case, so how do we make sense of all these things? So hypothetically, okay, let's come to that stage of Vijnanamoy where you're just understanding how I'm going to make this spiritual, I don't know, something. How to make sense of all the world's traditions. So the yoga takes us an answer for that also, and it's related to the fifth stage of consciousness called Anandamoya, the blissful state of consciousness. But before we go to talk about Anandamoya, we're going to go into these 5 stages of spiritual evolution. Right? And I'm hoping that after this talk you can have tools to take away with you to analyze your own consciousness where you're at, and you can sort of analyze everything else in the world and where everyone else is at and where you'd like to be. Okay? And then we'll try and wrap something up conclusively. So, okay, here we go. Imagine that you're sick of your university. 30, 40, 50, 60, $700,000 student loan. And I might not even become a doctor. I might not become even a lawyer. Well, say you're sick of your corporation, the place that you're working, and you've had it. I don't want to work here anymore. And generally what I tell people is you got to displace yourself, man. Just get out of uni for a little bit. Just get out of your home. Just displace yourself from your usual environment. That you're so caught up in your own world that you can't even see the bigger picture. And that's how society teaches you how to work. You just talk to anyone in Queen Street, you're so focused, and money. Focused on something, and they can't see the bigger reality. So the first thing I tell people, displace yourself from your normal environment and imagine you're here. I don't know where it is, but it's beautiful. There's a lot of people that come to New Zealand to experience beautiful scenery, right? Who came to New Zealand to look at the nature? Yeah, a few. Exactly. Yeah, it's nice, right? You wanted to get out of France. Is it France? Germany, sorry. What part of Germany are you from?
Hamburg.
Okay, so it's a big city?
Yeah.
Yeah, and people have expectations of you?
Yeah.
And you just
Not really, but yeah.
Something, but it's in a subtle way, Yeah. So get out of the place. Come to New Zealand and see the beautiful scenery. Okay, so for 30 seconds, just meditate on this. Okay. Sorry, that's all, folks. So wasn't that nice? I mean, it's better than being in Queen Street, surely. But The reason I showed that is that when you displace yourself from your normal environment and go to somewhere like beautiful like that, and you just experience, wow. That's the realization I got because I used to be an outdoor OPC camp leader. I used to take 13-year-old kids to Mount Ruapehu for hiking and abseiling, all that stuff when I was 17 years old. And I remember getting this vivid realization the first time I climbed up Mount Ruapehu. There's the big mountain in the middle of the North Island. And it's like, I was standing in the middle of the mountain, I'm like, wow, I'm so tiny and insignificant. And there's so much beauty around me, and so much wonder, and so much more to life. You really get that awe and reverence when you're in that kind of environment. Wow. And this is really, 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 really good. Because then you actually begin to understand your constitutional position in this existence, in this universe, that you are tiny. Well, I'm sorry to say, but we're tiny in relationship to everything else in existence, in the cosmos. And this gives a lot of inspiration for traditions like shamanism, pantheism, neo-paganism, Gaia worship, Shintoism in Japan. The whole meditation is basically absorbed in the water, the sky, the thunderbolt, the land, the forests, and their whole essence, their whole consciousness is fully absorbed in that. And this is the first stage of spiritual evolution, according to the yoga text, which is called Shakta Dharma. Shakta means energy. And you can even categorize the scientists in this category. Because modern scientists are very much absorbed in the energies of nature and the laws of nature. So you could say they're actually Shakta, they're Shaktas. They're all concerned about the energy and the abstractions of nature. So this is the first level of spiritual evolution. The next level of spiritual evolution is this. Can anyone guess what this is? Sun, right. 30 seconds. Sources of energy in nature, the sun is the center of the universe that keeps all the planets aligned. Actually, then, this stage of spiritual evolution, you begin to become conscious that of everything that you eat, you smell, you touch, it actually has heat involved. And the sun enables all of nature to manifest life, grow, basically, help them grow. The vegetables, the forests, and the leaves, and so many things that the sun provides for subsistence, for life in the universe. And this gives a lot of inspiration for many cultures, ancient and also modern. Actually, a lot of people still see the sun as an object of meditation and devotion. There's the Aztecs, and there's in ancient Egypt and Africa, and even in Europe, there's a Stonehenge there. So this is the second stage of spiritual evolution, where the sun becomes, that's the prime object of our consciousness, absorption. So the next stage is quite interesting. No longer are we looking for the inspiration from the abstractions in nature, but rather, oh, by the way, that last one, it's called Surya Dharma. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. So the first one is called Shakta Dharma, second one is called Surya Dharma, and this third one is called Ganapati Dharma, where we no longer find inspiration from the abstractions of nature, but rather we begin to see a spark of the divinity in living beings, in creatures. A spark of that consciousness within all living beings. And this is further developed in things like humanism and Jainism and Buddhism, where really the goal of which is to, through psychological empowerment, mitigate suffering by your own will. This is called Ganapati Dharma. So you can categorize these traditions into this specific type. And the next one is called, we'll just quickly go along this, I don't want to go on too much, but the next type is Shaiva Dharma. This means that actually of all living beings, human beings having human consciousness is the topmost in existence. And that human consciousness is there, and it's in the human form that we can actually transcend all these different bodily designations that the consciousness is entrapped in. We want to go through this. Generally, this kind of spiritual evolution, this stage, is that we want to merge into the oneness of all existence. You, me, we're all conscious, and we come from a conscious source, and we want to merge with that source. We're all one. And the meditation is about connecting to that oneness, the unity of the universe. You are the universe. You're part of the universe. The different forms and abstractions are just there to get you to that point of realizing that we're all one. There's no differentiation. It's monism. And the last stage of spiritual evolution is what we call, it's also Shaiva Dharma, what we call the Vaishnava Dharma. That's when we begin to think that love is the supreme, or supreme love. Whereas in Shaiva Dharma, it's just focused on the oneness. And this last stage of spiritual evolution, there's two. Because in order to have love, there's got to be two, at least, because there has to be a relationship. So the supreme source of existence, like we hear sometimes people say, love is the supreme, or the supreme is love. Well, what does it actually mean? Indeed, love is a very absorbing factor of our existence. Relationships are a very absorbing factor of our existence. These are fundamental principles of our existence. So when you say love is the supreme, indirectly we're actually saying that love must incorporate two, because it has to be at least two to be a relationship. And secondly, supreme must be a person. Because how can you have a relationship with something that's not a person? Any couples here, by any chance? In the audience? No couples here? In the back? In the back. Couple. Right. Okay. So she's a person. She's not a stone. Or you'd like her to be. So she's a person. You're attracted to the person, right? Yeah. So when we say the love is the supreme, we're meaning that the love, there has to be two, so it's not one, and the object of love must be a person, and also indirectly we're saying that the object of love must also be attractive, right? Otherwise, how can there be any affection, reciprocation, if you didn't find her attractive? Do you find her attractive? Oh, you're just saying that. You find him attractive, right? Of course. Otherwise you wouldn't be in a relationship, right? And when we say that love is the supreme, not only is it a person or there are two involved, or is there attraction involved, but there must be pleasure. Otherwise, you wouldn't have affection and you wouldn't be together because you have a miserable relationship, right? Because if there's no pleasure in your relationship, then why be in a relationship, right? You give each other pleasure in different ways. So, the last stage of spiritual evolution is that how to connect with the love supreme. And that love supreme must be a person, must be attractive, must be a reservoir of pleasure. And that, when we come to that stage of realization, only can we fulfill our heart's greatest need, because the need of the soul, according to the yoga text, is for love and reciprocation and affection. Not in a material way, but in a non-material way. And this is where Bhakti Yoga comes in. Now, all these categories have categories in with themselves. So there's different categories, even within the Vaishnava Dharma. And you can see very simplified orientations. I'm just going through all the wrong slides. you can see basically simplified orientations of this Vaishnava Dharma and things like the Abrahamic traditions of the world, like Judeo-Christianity and Islam and Judaism and that. But it's also there in the yoga text. You can actually have a connection with the most attractive, lovable, pleasurable source of existence. And that is the supreme absorption, because love is supreme. Right? What's the next slide? There you go. I think that was the slide I was supposed to play. So, anyway, the slides are not working for me tonight, but let's just forget it. So we want to connect. That's the best kind of absorption. How to connect with the love supreme. And you can categorize all the traditions and all the different meditations in yoga in these five dharmas. Shakta Dharma, Surya Dharma, Ganapati Dharma, Shaiva Dharma, and Vaishnava Dharma. And in this way you can see that actually it's not such a hodgepodge. Actually in Bhagavad Gita, in the commentary it said that when you speak of spirituality, you're actually speaking of a great science. And there's a process involved. There's technology involved. Just like in mathematics. In mathematics, there's higher and lower grades of mathematics. There's calculus being at the top, and then there's arithmetic being at the bottom, and everything in between: algebra, statistics, whatever. What? Mathematicians. But it's the same principle. When you speak of spirituality, it's a great science. There's more comprehensive, concise knowledge about the spiritual reality, and there's more basic, not so concise, simplified orientations of spirituality. So, in that way, we can see things as something somewhat unified. The goal, ultimately, of the human form of life is to come to this stage of Vijnanamaya, to come to understand that we need to make a spiritual journey in our life, and not neglect the non-material conscious aspect of our existence that so many people have done and are doing in this modern age, because we're not encouraged to, generally speaking, in today's society. And we could, to some extent, relegate a lot of the problems in today's society because we neglect this fundamental principle of our consciousness evolution, our spiritual evolution. So we want to absorb our existence in this. And that's exactly what this Maha Mantra is. As Bhadra was saying, this mantra meditation is very profound. Krishna actually means the attractive source of all attraction. That's the literal meaning of Krishna, the source of all attraction. Rama is the reservoir of all pleasure. How to use the energy of that? Actually, the source, the most attractive person in existence has unlimited names. In one of our books it says that you can Yahweh, Allah, Jehovah, Krishna, Govinda, Shyamasundar, Parthasarathi, Rama, they're all the same name for the same most beautiful, attractive person in existence. Just because the sun rises in China, it's not a Chinese sun. Just because the sun rises in Germany, it's not a German sun, or is it a New Zealand sun? The sun belongs to every living entity in this universe. But they call it different names. They call the sun different names according to where they're situated, and they call the sun in different names according to how their consciousness is elevated. Some, because of their lower level consciousness, will perceive the sun as the abstractions of nature. Some may perceive the sun as the bright, amorphous energy in the sky. Or some may perceive the sun as that most lovable, pleasurable, attractive object that we can have a relationship with. And the yoga knowledge of ancient India is giving us access to all this through meditation and processing technology, spiritual technology. It's not something that we just believe in, because people are sick of beliefs, quite frankly. We want to see the changes in consciousness and how our consciousness is actually being elevated to the high level of perception by which we can actually experience a non-material reality. Otherwise, you can see people professing, yeah, I'm spiritual, but from their actions, it doesn't look like they're very spiritual. And with all good intent, a lot of people want to embark in their spiritual journey, they just don't know where to start. So here at the Loft, we want to encourage spiritual education, because no one wants to be cheated. You want to find out as much as you can about that supreme source, because the best knowledge gives you access to the best pleasure. Just like before you came to New Zealand, you wanted to figure out what is the best place to be in New Zealand. Where did you want to go? You went to a travel agency and you want to find out about everything about New Zealand and where's the best places to go in New Zealand, because when you get to New Zealand, you're going to have a knockout experience. Prerequisite of that was knowledge. So in the same way, if we want to experience the non-material reality, we want to educate ourselves with transcendental knowledge so we can have a knockout experience, because we don't have that knockout experience. It's just very easy to be swept away with a work by consume die kind of like culture, because there's no tangible experience. That's why so many people, they sort of begin a spiritual journey and then you see them, wow, what happened to that guy? It's not very encouraging. A lot of people, they go to places like India and do all these kind of meditations and yoga, but without the prerequisite knowledge, it can be, you can be cheated. It's just like my mother. She wanted to buy me a car when I was 16 years old. She knew nothing about cars. And I could tell by just the way she was speaking to the car salesman. She wanted to buy me a car. She knew nothing about cars. And then the car salesman went to the Honda Civic that was the closest next to us. And what did she do? She started kicking the wheel. Like she really knew something about vehicles. She looked under the bonnet, pulled out the oil thing. I don't know anything about cars either, So the guy just rips you off, he's a 10K for like a black Honda Civic that's 20 years old, Something ridiculous like that. So we can very easily be cheated if we don't have a comprehensive understanding about how to begin our spiritual journey. So here at the Loft, we don't want to convert anyone. It's not a place for that. It's actually a place. It's a facility for spiritual education about understanding these things. And once you have sufficient knowledge, then you can actually understand what is the best thing for me. And what is the best decision to make for my spiritual journey. So in that way, you can take advantage of this place. Right? So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I just wanted to wrap up with this one video from my teacher, which kind of like summarizes everything I kind of said the past 45 minutes. And then we'll open up for one question if anyone is burning to ask something.
Just keep on the my question.
After the video.
The meditation boom is on like never before. Somehow, meditation and mindfulness have become the aspirin for all our mental aches and pains. Who wouldn't want to become free of stress? Who wouldn't want to escape anxiety? What to speak about generating new fountains of happiness? Meditation and mindfulness promise to do all that. Yet, surprisingly, amidst all the euphoria concerning the discovery of a new technique for aiding humanity's quest for happiness and peace, suddenly negative reports have begun to appear. One scholar at the University of California, Irvine, researched those who attended mindfulness meditation retreats. His research tells him that 7% of all the attendees experienced some profoundly severe adverse effects. How could this arise? Simply from mindfulness and meditation. Let's consider that actually everyone's meditating on something. Everyone concentrates their mind on something. The crucial point, the Bhakti texts will point out, is what becomes the focus of our meditation. Otherwise, everyone's mind is fixated on this thing or that thing. The key, the Bhakti Yoga texts tell us, is the object of the meditation. Looking at the dark side of meditation, we find that people experience the reappearance of childhood traumas. Violent thoughts come to their mind. Lustful thoughts come to their mind. Paranoia, anxiety attacks. How can this be? A little taught occurrence from ordinary meditation practices is the rising to the top of the pond of all kinds of gunk and gook from the bottom of the pond. Often, wannabe meditators and mindfulness persons aren't taught this. Simply by focusing the mind on the thoughts, on the feelings, the sensations of the body and mind, gives no ultimate and positive connection. The Bhakti Yoga texts focus on how we can be reconnected to the Supreme Source, the unlimitedly all-attractive source of pleasure. There is the real object of meditation. This is what we should become mindful of. But if we have some kind of voidistic or nothingness or self-disappearance type of meditation, we can get into risky waters very easily. Some of those impersonal meditation systems involve a radical dissolving of what we think the self is, so that you disappear into nothingness, supposedly. Other systems involve you're feeling oneness with the universe, and in that way also, any concept of the self disappears. The popular forms of mindfulness and meditation often derive from these voidistic or nothingness and impersonal or I am the everything forms of meditation. What I'd like to stress is the origin of meditation. The origin of meditation is the origin of everything. Meditation and mindfulness are meant to connect us with that ultimate source of everything. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that from Krishna comes all material and spiritual energies. Everything emanates from Krishna. We find that love supreme, that ultimate connection, that ultimate source of beauty, knowledge, strength, fame, wisdom, and detachment. We find all that unlimitedly in the ultimate source. Therefore, the goal of Bhakti Yoga meditation and mindfulness is how to become more focused upon that supremely, unlimitedly attractive source of pleasure, Krishna.
Okay, questions? Anyone has a burning question? Otherwise, is it okay?
You said about animals having the spark of divineness, but then at the same time we have a higher level of consciousness. So I was just a bit confused about that, because I thought that, that idea of the divineness in animals I really liked.
Yeah, they're definitely animals are definitely conscious. There's no doubt about it, and there is a spark of divinity within such creatures.
Yeah.
But there is a difference in the human consciousness, and that the human consciousness has the capacity to actually make the spiritual journey. That the animals, according to the yoga texts, are just going through an evolutionary process of coming up to the human form of life. And even scientists will recognize this. Scientists will say that human beings are the only creatures in this world that are geophysical force, meaning that with your heightened consciousness and intelligence, you have the capacity to either destroy the world or not. And that means that human beings have a heightened intelligence. And that intelligence is for figuring out these most profound topics about our spiritual journey. So the animals are definitely conscious, but they're going through an evolutionary changes of bodies themselves until they come to the human consciousness. So human beings have that heightened intelligence and consciousness, but we're currently, according to the scientists, misusing it because we're destroying the world around us and ourselves, right? So, but that heightened consciousness that's there intrinsic in the human being, it should be meant for spiritual, embarking in our spiritual quest, which is very exciting, very fulfilling, very dynamic, and very pleasurable. So, please, we encourage everyone to take advantage of this place, and please take some books. So thank you very much for your patience and attention.